morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now, as many of you already know, New York Comic-Con is in full swing right now, and it seems to be gaining somewhat on the motherlode of all comic book conventions, and that's San Diego Comic-Con. Now, San Diego Comic-Con is dominated for quite some time, not just because of its sheer size and being the most famous of all the comic book conventions, but because up until now it's really had a monopoly on the studio announcements. I mean, every comic book convention has celebrity guests because that's a source of income for those actors. They travel around, expenses paid to go to these conventions, and they charge quite a bit of money actually for an autograph, as I'm sure many of you are aware. And the lines get quite long to meet some of them. So again, it's a very steady and nice, consistent source of income for them. And it's a nice experience for the fans, and it lends some star power to those smaller conventions. But again, the studios have really only headed over to San Diego. But Disney is changing that. Warner Brothers will have a small presence at New York Comic-Con as well, but Disney really has made some headlines, particularly yesterday with their first official look at Tomorrowland, and then of course with the Big Hero 6 sizzle reel, timed perfectly just a few weeks before the movie hits theaters and has to deal with Interstellar as they go head-to-head at the box office. As I said to someone in the comments yesterday on the Big Hero 6 sizzle reel from New York Comic-Con, only one can be #1 at the box office, and that's kind of the battle you see shaping up there. And then, of course, on Saturday we should see some headlines as Disney Marvel, shines a spotlight on their Netflix programming, specifically Daredevil. But we all know that Disney isn't just trying to build up New York Comic-Con, but is really trying to set their own pace and scheduling in terms of their announcements. They don't want to be beholden to any comic book convention. They were very quiet at San Diego Comic-Con, much to many people's frustration, including myself, although I think we've come to understand it's part of a bigger plan. And then, of course, this New York Comic-Con move in D23, where they really save a lot of their big announcements because that's their own convention, their own fan convention, and they want to make sure people attend. But now, Disney Marvel has another experience, another tour that they're planning, which will be available to people across the United States. And maybe it will go overseas as well. And that's something that was discussed at New York Comic-Con, and that's the Marvel Experience. And it's going to be much cheaper than not only most convention tickets, because you want to go for multiple days, and also you have to travel to those conventions, but it will also be cheaper than even those autographs that you get when you go to smaller comic book conventions. And the tickets are going to be only $20 to $35. So that's the top ticket, $35. That's very affordable and very impressive, and I think it's going to go a long way towards making this tour a success. So we'll get into the specifics of the tour in just a moment, but I want to tell all of you who are considering going, tickets go on sale today for the first 4 stops on the tour. So if you live in Phoenix, Dallas, San Diego, or San Francisco, you want to get on Ticketmaster today, check right now, because tickets might already be on sale, to see if you can't scoop up some passes to the Marvel Experience, which I think is going to be quite the experience. My only concern is that it's something that adults can enjoy. I actually went to see the How to Train Your Dragon stage show because my family wanted to go, and we're really a big fan of that movie franchise, obviously. And they brought in the technology from the Walking with Dinosaurs, so we thought it would be really impressive with the dragons, and it was good, but it was for very, very small children, Like, I shouldn't have been there. So I have some concern that this could be the same way, but considering what they have planned for it, I think it's worth the $20 to $35 gamble. So it's from Hero Ventures, which does a number of these live shows, and that's what gives me some pause for concern. But you can see some photos here. They're going to set it up like a S.H.I.E.L.D. installation. S.H.I.E.L.D. has to go all over the world, exploring certain phenomenon, and they have to set up a local base of operations, and so they're going to be setting one up in your hometown, which I think is a very cool idea. So it's like a mobile command center, and the dome, the main dome, will go up to 6 stories tall in the center. And the focal point is going to be a 4D motion ride. I hope that works out. That's because, this has to be portable, but 4D motion rides can seem very low-tech, very carnivalesque, because that's basically a chair that moves. I'm not sure if it will be one of those enclosed things that you see like at local science theme parks or centers, or if it will just be like chairs that move in one big theater where there's a screen, kind of like if you've ever been to Universal Studios, then it's now branded as the Despicable Me ride, kind of like that. So that's going to be one thing. There's going to be interactive gaming, original animated shorts, and then as you can see here from one of these pictures, they're going to include all the Marvel characters. That's one of the benefits of these events, is that they can fold in their whole repertoire because they own the rights in that regard. So this is one place where you will see Spider-Man fight alongside the Avengers. But I think it's interesting. I don't see anybody here, but I don't see the X-Men included in this. And I think that the Sony-Disney relationship continues to be the best and the healthiest, whereas they still clearly have a lot of problems with Fox. Again, Kevin Feige is producing the Deadpool movie, but at the same time, I think, we've just heard that Fantastic Four news about canceling the title because they're so upset, particularly Isaac Perlmutter, who, the head of Marvel, biggest stockholder at this point in Disney, is so upset that they have the rights over at Fox instead of within the company. So he's really wants that out of Marvel's, slate. So very interesting. So that's the first story of the day, and I'm curious to what you guys think of that. Is this something you'd want to attend? All right, so the second story of the day is a little bit of an unfortunate story, with Hollywood politics. And this has to do with James Bond. Now, everybody loves the new James Bond. Very excited for the third film. It's going to reteam Daniel Craig with Sam Mendes, and it's going to be the Bondiest movie of the bunch because we've done all the backstory, we've done all the origin story, we've gotten Bond to where he needs to be. We've set up his team with the new M. We've got a Q now, a money penny in place. He can really have some traditional James Bond adventures. But he wants to make sure he's the only one having them, as Universal is finding out the hard way. Now, a very hot script was Section 6. You might have recalled this being covered in some of the trades a couple months back as they put the cast and director together for this film. And Section 6 is a film that tells the history of a British intelligence agency called MI6, Section 6. And it's supposed to be directed by Joe Cornish, Edgar Wright's pal, a very talented director. He did Attack the Block, of course. And then it's supposed to star Jack O'Connell, who American audiences are going to know as the lead in Angelina Jolie's Unbroken, but UK fans love quite a bit from his role on Skins. So that's a very UK cast and a very, important, I think, UK film. It's kind of like a serious Kingsman: The Secret Service, the real-life story of Section 6 and how that came to be. And I'll get to that a little bit more in a moment. But what's the beef here? Well, the problem is that both MGM and the production company behind the James Bond films have taken Universal to court saying that this is copyright infringement. And I can't believe it, but the court actually agreed with MGM and the Bond company, saying that Section 6 was too much of copyright infringement on the Bond franchise. To which I don't understand, as one is a fictional story about a super spy, and one is a real story about, historically mapping out how this Section 6 came to be. I don't see how that's copyright infringement at all. If anything, Bond is a copyright infringement on the actual Secret Service. So I'm very disappointed to see that this case holds any water, and this is actually a problem for Universal. And Universal is actually quite upset about it, and has, I think rightly accused MGM of using the copyright law to take out competitors. And I can see why they would be concerned that maybe because, gritty realism is so popular these days, Jack O'Connell as a super spy might be something that they're nervous about. But again, if this is historical and this is based on things that actually happened, I mean, it would be again a period piece, I guess. But still, why don't you sue Kingsman: The Secret Service? I just think it's not appropriate. Now, the reason I like Section 6 so much as a movie is I think the birth of intelligence is such a fascinating subject. I read a couple of books on this. I read about the beginnings of the CIA and how that operated, and I've also read a really good book about, female spies in World War II and the birth of, the intelligence agency there, and how, nobody really knew what they were doing. It's just fascinating to see, intelligence come together, these communities, and there's no groundwork. There's no one else who's ever done this for them to build on. They have to start from scratch, and it's really a lot of people, as I said, not knowing what they're doing. It's just basically if you decided to become a spy, just all on your own, how would you go and do that? But you have the power of a government behind you. It's a fascinating situation, and I think for someone to kill a movie about that, especially considering that Section 6, MI6 is a very celebrated intelligence agency, is horrible. And I wish somebody would make a movie about the birth of the Central Intelligence Agency. I mean, some people have tried, and I believe there's some TV projects about it, but no one's really, I think, done it justice. Maybe Homeland in some cases has come close in portraying the way the CIA actually works, but I think right now only books have really done a good job of showing you the truth about intelligence. Very, very interesting. So I'm curious to what you guys think about that. Who do you agree with, Universal or MGM and Bond? Do you think it's copyright infringement? And what do you think of them being able to silence, a real story here? Do you think the real versus fiction is enough of a to differentiate the two? All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story is about Django Unchained, which had a major casting announcement late last night. Now, the cast is in place mostly already because they're about to go into production in about 2 months from now. Quentin Tarantino has set this up brilliantly. You really have to give it up to him. But the cast so far that's been confirmed for the lead roles, there's some supporting, but we're just going to focus on the leads, are Kurt Russell, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, Tarantino favorite obviously, Bruce Dern, he did get the role, even though his agent was accused of leaking this script, Walton Goggins, who I absolutely love. He had a small part in Django Unchained, but he's very well known on FX, opposite Timothy Olyphant. He's a fantastic actor, and I hope he has a bigger part here, because he was very underused in Django. And then, of course, Samuel L. Jackson, who's always a treat, but particularly when he's working with Tarantino. Now, there's a female lead here, and this has been a very hotly pursued role by a number of actresses. And it's a woman who's accused of murder and is set to hang. And she finds herself on this stagecoach with these other characters, and they get caught in a blizzard in Wyoming. And it's what they have to do to survive. It's kind of like Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat, but in the American West. I think it's a very interesting project. There's, of course, a lot of storied history about this happening in real life. That infamous one, of course, about those settlers who were trapped by a storm and ended up eating each other. Very, very, very interesting setup, and I think it pulls a lot from the folklore. So I think it sounds great. So who is going to play this woman? Well, who was up for it first? Amber Tamblyn. You probably, I'm creating this level of suspense, but if you've already seen the story, it's been ruined. But for those of you not familiar, Amber Tamblyn played the role in the live read. That's actually Russ Tamblyn's daughter, from West Side Story, which is pretty awesome. So she read it for the live read, and then Michelle Williams wanted this role, but then she was the only really young actress, along with Amber Tamblyn, ingenue-like actress to pursue this movie. Otherwise, it was older actresses like Hilary Swank, Robin Wright wanted it, and then Demi Moore. Very interesting choices, but the person who got it is even more interesting, and that's Jennifer Jason Leigh. I mean, what a left field choice. She's certainly a well-respected actress. I believe she's married to Noah Baumbach, now that I think about it. So she's very well integrated into the, at least the indie community. And she's had some successful roles, like Dorothy Parker in The Vicious Circle. That was a key role for her. But I think she's never really defined herself with the mainstream public. I think if you asked who Jennifer Jason Leigh was, the name would ring a bell. But, there's no real, I think you'd be hard-pressed to point to her most famous or favorite film of hers, her iconic film. And this might be it, though. So I think it's great that Tarantino thought to choose her for this, and we'll see if she delivers. Very interesting choice, and she's got to bring something special to the role, because she certainly isn't bringing star power. No one's going to be like, I have to see Django Unchained because Jennifer Jason Leigh is in it. That's not going to happen. So she must really be doing a great job with the role. Now, there was another rumor floating around that Jennifer Lawrence was up for the role, but now the rumor has evolved into that maybe she's up for another role in the film. And I have to say, as much as everybody might feel Jennifer Lawrence is a little overexposed at this point, and I would second that, I think she'd be a great person to work with Tarantino. I think that she's just perfect for his kind of writing. And, she's really a bold performer, and I think she specializes in bold roles and very truthful, honest roles. And I think that Tarantino writes dialogue that's exactly that. So I think she could be very interesting, and that could be a great team up between the two of them, something I'd be very excited to see. So maybe not even put her here, hold off to his next film if he's not going to give her a big lead role. Or maybe like a really interesting cameo where she can really make a searing impression so that she doesn't continue to overexpose herself with the public. She's going to have to pull back at some point, I think, because you never want to have people go, Jennifer Lawrence again? And Channing Tatum has quite brilliantly kind of circumvented that. I was actually talking to Matt Colby, DP and editor, on Beyond the Trailer, and he made a great point that the reason Channing Tatum isn't overexposed is because he's in so many different types of movies. You see so many different sides of him. You don't get tired of him because you're not seeing the same Channing Tatum. You see versions of Channing Tatum, which keeps it interesting. So that's something Jennifer Lawrence might want to consider with her own career. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Let's get on to the viewer question, and that is from Great Broadway Fan. And Great Broadway Fan says, Hi Grace, I absolutely love your channel. Oh, thank you, Great Broadway Fan. I really appreciate that. And he continues saying, I have a very important question that I'd love for you to answer. My pleasure. As you can tell by my handle, I am a great lover of musical theater, and I'm so excited for Into the Woods. If only Christmas could come sooner. I'm excited too, and I think that's probably the movie I'll end up seeing on Christmas Day, if I haven't seen it beforehand at the press screening. It looks very, very good to me. But great Broadway fan continues saying, I, like many other fans, was so happy when the teaser trailer finally dropped on July 31st. But now that it's October, there has been no official full-length trailer. And we all know Disney loves to release trailers for their films. So here is the two-part question that great Broadway fan is putting forward. 1, do you feel that too many or too few trailers can hurt a movie? And how many weeks, months before its release is it appropriate to release a trailer? And 2, also, do you think it was a good or bad idea to feature a trailer for a movie musical with no singing? If we learned anything from Tim Burton's Sweeney Todd with Johnny Depp, it was bad advertising, i.e. trailers with no singing, that it's almost as if they were trying to hide the fact that it was a musical. Thanks again, love the show, and keep making awesome videos. 4 smiley faces, Luke. All right, Luke, great question, and I think there's a lot of interest in Into the Woods, and you're just really not seeing a big push for it. And again, as I've pointed out before, with other Disney properties, that's the problem. Disney really has an overcrowded release slate. So I think that just like they're holding off on Star Wars publicity because they want to make sure everyone goes and sees Avengers 2 Age of Ultron. They want to keep the focus there, just like you didn't see a lot of Marvel announcements around Guardians of the Galaxy. They wanted to keep the focus on Guardians of the Galaxy. I think when you head over to their family, specifically, because the Marvel movies are family-oriented, but when you head over to the specific family fare, I think you're not seeing a big push for Into the Woods because they want to make sure you go see Big Hero 6. I think they're very concerned that if they, put another movie on the horizon, people will just say, well, that's the next Disney movie they want to see. I think that Disney wants to make sure that you see the next that Disney has to offer, and by doing that, they can't show you what's coming later down the line. Just what is next. And right now, what's next is Big Hero 6. So I suspect you'll probably get a full-length trailer for Into the Woods in front of Big Hero 6. Because it's only coming out about a month after that, about a month and a half. And that's enough time, I think, to really ramp up interest in the project, because there is so much interest from the fan community, and I think they just want to do a last-minute blitz, probably, to make sure you go and see that on Christmas Day. And I have to say, Into the Woods has very little competition on Christmas Day. It's the only movie, I think, that's family-friendly that opens on Christmas Day. Well, not at the Museum 3, but I don't think that's going to be able to compete with Into the Woods because of the production values. It's something fresh and new, and it has an amazing cast. I think a lot of people are going to make that their Christmas Day choice. There's some other movies coming out, but people will save those, I think, the general public, the movie-going public, will save that for closer to New Year's. I mean, you need a movie to see on Christmas Day, and I think Into the Woods is a perfect choice. Now, of course, there's Mockingjay coming out beforehand, and Interstellar, and the final Hobbit film, but the bulk of that audience will have already seen those movies by the time Christmas Day hits. So I think Into the Woods really is positioned perfectly. So I think that the case of Disney, Luke, it's really just having to really have not only carefully manage when they promote these movies, but have incredible discipline is to not, to not blink. They're basically playing chicken with their movies in the box office, and they're going to go. They're like, Into the Woods is important, just like Star Wars is important, but it's also very important that Big Hero 6 and Avengers 2: Age of Ultron perform at the box office. So I think that's what you're seeing here. Now, as for how many trailers a movie should release, I think you have to feel out the crowd and how much there is to reveal about your movie before giving away too much. And you never really know if it's going to capture people's imagination or not. I think it's really a case-by-case basis in terms of how many trailers to release, and I think that something like Into the Woods doesn't need too many trailers. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think they'll probably have maybe 1 or 2 more trailers and certain posters and lots of TV spots that they'll run. But I think that you have to, there's like a very fine line between showing just enough to make people feel it's worth going to see it in the theater, and then showing so much that they feel I've already seen the movie, I don't need to go. And then, of course, what you show in the trailer. I think that Edge of Tomorrow, or AKA Live, Die, Repeat, as it's now known in the home video market, suffered from a horrible trailer that did a very bad job setting up not just what that film was actually about, but the tone. I think they went off the Groundhog Day idea, and everyone was like, well, I don't, not only am I worried about Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt, I'm sorry to say, is box office poison. Let's hope that doesn't come into effect for Into the Woods. But, people are like, I don't want to watch the same story again and again and again in a sci-fi atmosphere. It's comedic when Bill Murray did it, but now that seems like it could get on my nerves. But as we all know, if those of us who've seen the film, that's not the case at all. So it's a case-by-case basis, and as Hollywood studios get more and more crowded in terms of their release schedule, they really have some difficult choices to make. All right, thank you so much for your question, Luke. I wouldn't be too worried about Into the Woods. I think as of right now, it looks like it's going to be a big performer. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories, the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered on, well, actually, on Monday, it's a holiday here in the United States, so there will be no morning movie news and no movie math. Movie math will move to Tuesday. I won't drop it, but there will be other programming, of course, going up. So thank you so much for everyone for tuning in, and you can check out some more episodes right now.